Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Board YouTube channel. We're back for our weekly show here with myself, Jacob, and my co-host, Kirk Evans, beside me to talk through some of the biggest stories around the NBA on the week before we get into some betting conversation as well. And betting just kind of integrates itself within every conversation that we have over here. But it was such a busy week in the NBA. It feels like quite a blur, to be honest, that before we started here in show preparation, we forgot about the Kyle Lowry, Terry Rozier trade. That will be on the menu today, along with the Milwaukee Bucks, the coaching change that went on there, the rather puzzling coaching change, maybe not so puzzling that they got rid of Adrian Griffin, but perhaps puzzling in who they replaced him with. We also have the Rookie of the Year race, which is really heating up, especially after Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama went toe-to-toe in last night's game between the Thunder and the Spurs. But Kirk Evans, the week that was in the NBA, how did it go for you?
It was a good week. Busy week, trade season coming. I actually really like this part of the NBA schedule. I find it's a lot of things happening, a lot of games, All-Star break coming up, trade deadline coming up. There's a lot of stuff happening.
Well, I feel like a lot of people around the sports betting space don't really enjoy NBA January. A lot more outrageous score lines seem to go down. Do you not feel as though that's the same for yourself?
Yeah, well, I feel like most people kind of dislike unpredictability, huge blowouts, stuff like that. But to me, that all helps us the better and makes it tougher on the books. But I do think at some points, at this time of the season, some teams get pretty like you kind of know what they are, and that's maybe not the best. But then trades come, injuries come, and stuff gets interesting.
All right, so perhaps embracing variance over there. All right, let's get into our first topic today. It is Milwaukee Bucks coaching situation. Anybody watching in the comments as well, any questions you have along the way today, please be sure to drop them in the chat, and myself and Kirk Evans, we will get to them. But Milwaukee fired Adrian Griffin. The team was 30-13 when he was fired. Adrian Griffin has spent more than a decade as an NBA assistant, finally got his first opportunity to coach a team as the head coach. Unfortunately, despite a successful record, he has lost that opportunity. And Milwaukee Bucks have decided to go with Doc Rivers instead. Before we start talking about Doc here, let's talk about Adrian Griffin. Did you feel as though this was the right decision by the Milwaukee Bucks, or was this a little bit harsh for you after the positive start record-wise?
Yeah, so definitely when it came across my news feed yesterday was surprising to see. Just the Griffin side of it, not the Doc side, I thought was an amazing move by Milwaukee. I think a lot of organizations would look at firing a coach at 30-13 halfway through his first season and say, we just can't do that. There's a lot of people who, stuck their neck out for Griffin when they were hiring him, and it kind of is a bad look on them. But to really just say, screw it, we have to do what's best for the team here, I think is an excellent move. The team's vibes have been weird all year. The coaching was terrible right out of the gate. They changed their defensive scheme 4 games into the regular season. They looked like a mess in the preseason. Right away, Terry Stotts got fired before or resigned before the season started. They've been way overperforming in terms of their record versus how good they actually are. So not sitting on your laurels and saying we're 30-13, we can't fire the coach. Rather saying there's a significant problem here, we can fix it. Let's fire him, even though we're 30-13. I think is a great move.
For the lack of better term, I'll use the word desperation. It doesn't feel like desperate move, but it feels like the championship window is shrinking. We don't think this is our guy. Let's not waste any years of this with the person that we don't think is our guy. So from that perspective, I do have respect for the front office. I wish more front offices would kind of take this approach, but I guess this depends on the risk tolerance of the front office, possibly ownership as well. Sometimes their risk tolerance comes into play with things like that. You could kind of tell. I mean, we spoke about it on the show here. Like, is this like the worst team that we ever seen? Like, they're like 27-12, or like this team for some reason isn't very good, but they just keep winning here. So I can understand Adrian Griffin getting fired. I kind of feel for him in his first head coaching job. I hope he gets another opportunity. I think what it comes down to, as much as the NBA is about winning, much as it's about like the on-court stuff, a lot of coaching in any sport is man management. And it just felt like Adrian Griffin never had the players on his side. Not sure why. He seemed to have been pretty likable in his time with the Raptors, but sometimes there's just people out there who can command respect. And I don't know. It just seems to me like Adrian Griffin may not be one of those people for whatever reason. That's what it just seemed like. Maybe just wasn't the right fit. Sometimes things just don't work out. Sometimes just not the right fit. So whatever the reason is, he's gone. So we appreciate the Bucks for, sticking out and saying that this isn't like making the move here. This isn't our guy. Let's go for get our guy here. All that's fine and dandy. Their guy is, and the replacement to save this situation is Doc Rivers, who I cannot believe has been given another opportunity with a contending team. You had some words about this on Twitter, but what were your sentiments about Doc Rivers immediately becoming the candidate to replace him?
Yeah, it's tough because the Adrian Griffin firing is kind of the opposite of a safe move. Obviously the safe move would just be to continue with Adrian Griffin. It's what most teams would do. It's what most people would do. And I had a lot of respect for them saying, no, we're going to cut bait and fire this guy, even though we're going to take criticism, even though, we hired him before this season. And I thought that was a commendable move, the right move for Milwaukee. But then this Doc hiring, again, it seems like the absolute safest, move. The veteran coach who is well regarded amongst the league. So if you're gonna fire Adrian Griffin, why replace him with Doc Rivers? Like, I think Doc Rivers probably gets a little bit too much crap as a coach. In terms of he's not the worst coach in the league. He's actually a really good regular season coach.
He's easy to meme on though for the blown leads and whatever.
But he's just not a elite strategy late game playoff coach. And it's just, if you're firing Griffin and you're Milwaukee and you fired Bud, who's the best regular season coach in the league by far, Doc Rivers is kind of just a much worse version of Bud. In terms of, we'll get you regular season wins, low man team, players are out, your team's going to play hard, but just really does not adjust when it comes to the playoffs. It's slow to adjust. It's slow to change rotations. We'll go full bench units in the playoffs when you don't need to. Play his guys less minutes than more aggressive coaches will. So it just seems like you're making this Adrian Griffin move saying, we need to win a championship soon. And then you're hiring Doc, and it just doesn't feel like it accomplishes that. He's had so much time with high-level teams and has just really shown a track record of not being a great playoff coach. I think they'll probably be better in the regular season, and I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watched both of those Milwaukee-Detroit games pre-firing. Just I had money on them. And you honestly, you can tell. I nearly tweeted out in that first game, whoa, Milwaukee this is one of the least hard playing teams that's good I've ever seen. They I think the total there was 280 points. They couldn't stop Detroit in either game. Even the second game, they won both, but both were close. The team just clearly wasn't playing hard. So when I saw it and was oh, they had just won a few games, I was I could see how someone was watching those Detroit games and thought we need to change something up. But I just don't see why it's Doc. I think you could have just made a more aggressive hire on the back of such an aggressive move.
Yeah, I agree there. It's just you said it all. It's Doc in the playoffs. It's the adjustments. He doesn't make the adjustments, period. If he does, they're not quick enough. But every little intricate detail about playoff games. This is why Spoelstra's successful. This is why Nurse has had success in the playoffs. Every little aspect, intricacy is accounted for. And all these adjustments are made not from a game-to-game basis. These are made on the fly during the games, sometimes on a play-by-play basis. And Doc Rivers just has proven he's not been able to do that over and over. He obviously won it. He's a coach of the year with Orlando 20 years ago now. I don't know what it is. He won a championship in 2008 with the Celtics, got to a finals in 2010, and hasn't, to my knowledge, gone past second round since. Like the Phoenix brings up here in the chat, 2015 Clippers, 2020 Clippers, 2021 Sixers, didn't even get past the second round here. I also find what's a little bit funny about this situation that I'm reminded of as well here is that Doc was consulting for Agent Griffin a little bit
I was
in
about
the
to bring this
offseason.
up. No, I
And
don't think it was in the
yes,
offseason. I think he was brought in to
during the
consult
season.
like last month or something, which makes the whole situation weirder. And again, I always talk about this, but my God, the reporting on this situation has been absolutely horrific. The NBA reporting is a complete joke. Seven reporters come out and say Doc Rivers is the top of their list, but they have a couple other guys on that list, but we don't know those names. But the teams haven't spoken yet. But somehow the team, Milwaukee and Doc Rivers, haven't spoken about it. But actually, it turns out that Doc Rivers was a consultant for Milwaukee since like December. None of it makes sense. And then CNN actually reports that Doc Rivers has the job. No NBA media comments on that at all because Woj and Shams didn't get the scoop. So then Woj and Shams officially report it 14 hours later and pretend it's breaking news.
Well, from their perspective here, tampering, they don't want to get people in trouble, and they want to burn the bridge with their source. So, yeah, when Woj said, I forget which one, I think it was Woj who said they had, like, the Bucks and Doc have not had conversations yet. Like, they had the deal finalized when Woj tweeted that. Like, they obviously had
100%.
spoken before this, but Woj doesn't want to burn that source, doesn't want to get the source over, and doesn't want to get the Bucks in trouble with tampering, or else he's not going to get info from there anymore.
I agree, but at some point it gets to a problem where Woj is literally just a talking puppet for agents. Even you're saying, okay, well, he doesn't want to get he doesn't want to burn a bridge from a source. He doesn't have to come out and outwardly lie. He could just not say anything. He could just not tweet that they haven't talked. Like,
right.
If you just concede and say nothing, Doc's at the top of their list, that's one thing. At least then you're kind of just omitting the lie versus coming out and saying that they haven't spoken when everyone in the world knows that they've spoken. It's just like, now you're kind of treating the people who actually matter, the fans, like they're idiots.
Yeah. I can agree with that sentiment here. Back on AG, comment from 905 Yada in chat, talking about how this was a difficult first job as a head coach because there wasn't a ton of slack or patience. I mean, it's good and bad. First, like, you get a real good team to work with here. So, like, it should be easy to win. But I guess he did win and he still got in trouble. So, I guess, yeah, lack of patience overall. That is unfortunate. But again, hopefully he gets another opportunity here.
Yeah. It's a tough break for Adrian Griffin just because, like, I don't think he did a good job. And I don't think he's a particularly good coach. But, like, it's going to be tough for him to get another shot. And it was just a weird situation. Like, everything about it was weird. They weren't even hit. Like, it doesn't seem like they even really wanted Griffin. Sounds like they wanted Nurse, and Giannis didn't want Nurse, which now looks like an insanely big mistake. So yeah, it's going to be hard for Griffin to get another job, but he'll get back on a bench as an assistant.
Once you get your foot in the door of head coaching, I feel like there's always another opportunity. Like, look at fucking Doc Rivers.
Yeah,
but
I think it's a bit different. Like, when you get fired in like a weird way and you haven't established yourself, it's just a bit tougher. But I don't know. We'll see. I think he's going to have to grind out a bit.
The last time this happened, so the last time a team that was this good fired their coach, the Cavaliers in 2016 fired David Blatt at 30-11, so an even better record at this stage. Replaced him with Ty Lue, who was not the Ty Lue we know today as one of the best coaches in the league. Ty Lue was a relative, mostly unknown at the time, and the Cavaliers would go on to win the NBA championship. So making a bold move like this, maybe it pays off, but then not making the bold move of the coach, who knows what happens? We'll see how it all plays out here.
Yeah. Last point on Doc. I think we got to comment on that 2021 Philly team. That's a team that Doc does not get nearly enough criticism for. The team that the Raptors beat, was it 2021, 2020? I think 2020. No, the Raptors, 2019. 2019. The sorry.
Okay.
The 2019 team with Jimmy, Tobias, Joel, Simmons, Redick. That team was absolutely loaded. The Raptors had no business winning that series. That was like the Kawhi bounce win. We at no point in the series did it feel like we were the better team. I think Joel was like a plus 150 in a 7-game series, and they still lost. They were playing Greg Monroe at backup center and just could not figure out anything on how to stagger their lineups, not play, like majority bench lineups, how to use Ben Simmons. He completely got lost. Obviously, that happened.
Hang on,
overall.
sorry. I don't. This was. I think this wasn't Doc. This was still Brett Brown, wasn't it?
Oh, was that Brett Brown? All right, I take it back then. I apologize.
Yeah,
Not Doc.
I think that got Brett Brown fired.
Deservingly. My bad. So then the 2021, the Philly teams never were that good if he didn't have that. If he never had Jimmy, yeah, you're right. Brett Brown was coaching the Jimmy team. So the Clippers were really the worst ones. And then again,
Brett Brown stuck around because the Clippers had the bubble season. Then Doc got fired, and then Brett Brown got fired, and then Doc took over.
Yeah, so these Philly teams, like the Harden team last year, they weren't that good. So if 2021, I guess they were a bit of a contender. And also Joel.
I don't know. Last year, the Sixers were up 3-2 at home against Boston. And Joel Embiid doesn't touch the ball for the last 5 minutes of Game 6.
Yeah, and it's hard to not look at a significant criticism for Doc as to how good Joel's playing. But I think it'll be really interesting to see what Nurse does for Joel in the playoffs, because Joel has been far worse in the playoffs than in the regular season. And I think Doc has to take some of that blame at least.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on here. I agree with this. I guess we'll see what goes down with Giannis in the playoffs, and we'll see how different Embiid looks with what I think is now a good coach actually behind him. Let's keep moving here. Let's go to the Rookie of the Year race. We had quite the matchup, quite the battle yesterday between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. The Thunder obliterated the Spurs in the end because they're the far superior team. But an interesting little battle within the game here, because Chet Holmgren has 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks. Victor Wembanyama has 24 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks. Both of them were quite efficient in this one. But over the last few weeks or so, Victor Wembanyama, Rookie of the Year steam, has started to come back, and he is now the favorite to win the award. I'm just shopping around. Anywhere between like minus 150 to minus 200 is the price on Victor Wembanyama now to win the Rookie of the Year award, about the halfway stage of the season. I won't say he's come out of nowhere here, but it looked like Chet was on his way to kind of putting a lock on this award, but it's still a real battle here. What's your take on the race right now and where it's at?
Yeah, I think I would probably take some Wembanyama lines if you could get like minus 150 or minus 160. It's just a bit hard to see how Chet is going to win this award with the production Wemby's putting up right now. Like, he's been on a minutes limit and is putting up completely insane per minute stats, even completely insane game stats. Now the minutes limit's coming off. The back-to-backs he's going to start playing in. He's leading the league in blocks. He's putting up insane points. I think he's a much better rebounder than I thought he would be coming in. The question is kind of, one is a serious, like, one plays in a serious spot, and I don't mean for this to take away from Wemby, but I still don't really look at Wemby as a serious player right now, even though in the same breath, I think he literally could be he could be the best player to ever play basketball. But like, you still watch him play. He takes crazy shots. He does insane things. The team's completely non-serious. Even in these games, they're pretty consistently getting blown out, even when he's putting up these insane stat lines. So it's kind of serious versus non-serious, but the numbers are just becoming too overwhelming that I think Wemby has a really good track to win this award. Honestly, it's a funny thing because Greg Popovich coaches this team, but I wish like they just kind of took basketball slightly more seriously and tried winning games rather than play like a crazy pace. I know getting a pick is going to be valuable and it's going to be nice to have another top pick, and that's really all that matters for Wemby. But I wish they kind of were. There's obviously a balance to be had because you kind of want to let him go, let him do stuff. But he just does, like, he doesn't need to be taking, 28 shots a game, chucking up crazy off the dribble shots. His off the dribble stuff has come down slightly, but Chet is like the second best player on right now, the third best team in the league. So I think if it was like a most valuable rookie, he would have a better chance. But rookie of the year, I think Wemby has a real track to win this.
Yeah, just the minutes are going up. As much as like the Spurs have been unserious, they're starting to be more serious. They're actually like trying to play real basketball now. Wemby's at the 5 where he's improved.
Trey
So
Jones is starting.
yeah, Trey Jones starting is making a massive difference. Like all these things that were obvious, I'll give Pop the benefit. He's one of the all-time coaches. Surely he knew these things. He just kind of wanted to try out new things with Wembanyama, and I guess that makes sense. But now that he's actually making the obvious adjustments, the team is like they're still losing regular group, but Wembanyama is looking better. The team is looking a little bit better as well. So I kind of agree that at this point, if the Wembanyama price probably goes further towards Wemby than towards Chet at this point. I like the numbers are getting too overwhelming.
There's just
Chet.
not really any upside for Chet right now. Like he's not going to really play better. Like they're not going to expand his role. He's not going to play more. He's played unbelievably well. He's having one of the best rookie seasons ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like he's been ridiculously good. But Wemby's just kind of a different beast of a player. Like Chet's a bit more of a dependent player. He's like relies a little bit more on the system. He doesn't get up, 20 shots in a game regularly. Versus Victor kind of just he can kind of get to spots right now. He's stronger than I thought he would be. The off the dribble stuff isn't really there, but it just kind of seems like it doesn't matter. The offensive rebounding is ridiculous. He gets to the line a ton. He's kind of too big to put a small on him. I think that will be overall when games actually do get serious, what teams go to more, like a big, strong guy who can prevent him from moving. But he's physical. He's just a pretty crazy good player and is going to be completely insane. He'll probably be the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year next year too. He's leading the league in blocks. He's just overwhelming in a lot of ways, and I think it's going to be tough for Chet to really catch up there.
Agreed. Definitely agree with that. Let's go to the trade that went down. It's been such a crazy week here. I do not have a graphic for this one, but Kyle Lowry was traded. Terry Rozier is now on the Miami Heat. Kyle Lowry's salary dumped to the Hornets along with just the one first-round pick of 2027 first via Miami. Initial thoughts from this trade. Do you think this is a good fit for Miami? We've seen Terry Rozier now in a Heat jersey. He wasn't underwhelming. It wasn't a phenomenal performance in his debut for the Heat.
Yeah, a bit of a strange trade. I don't really see why Miami did this. I guess it's a bit hard to criticize Miami. They've made the finals twice in the past 4 years.
And a conference final as well.
And the conference finals as well. Jimmy Butler 3 away from making another final. So I think they probably look at themselves as more contenders than I look at them. I don't really feel like they're Terry Rozier away from anything. Also, I think Terry Rozier has been really good on ball this year, but I'm not really sure what Terry Rozier is for a good team. I think he's a fine defender, not as good as he used to be. He's a decent shooter. He's been fine on ball this year, not really good on ball any other year of his career. He's an okay passer. He's a good player. He's a solid player, but not someone I'd really go out and give assets for. And Miami, to me, Miami should be big game hunting. They're the Miami Heat. They have a pretty good roster already. They have a young star in Bam. Jimmy's already there. Does feel like some potential really good players are going to come available in the next, 12 to 18 months. One of them being Donovan Mitchell, who would be a really good fit for this team. So it just doesn't. It feels like a bit of a deck shuffle here. They're a bit better. Lowry's really has fallen off.
They're better. They're better.
Yeah, no,
not
clearly better.
I'd say more than a bit better.
But are they more than a bit better? I imagine
Terry Rozier takes scoring pressure off this team a little bit. I get Kyle Lowry's impact is not just box score based, but Terry Rozier takes scoring pressure off. His ability to get in the paint and move the defense around is something they haven't had. The shooting in general is going to be a lot more consistent than what Kyle Lowry had. It adds in another weapon, and I don't think this is a crazy move, but they salary dumped Kyle Lowry and they gave up a 2027 first. I don't expect the Heat to be anywhere near the lottery. Well, it's actually lottery protected anyways, but I don't expect the Heat to be giving away a, ba- a bad pick here at all. Like, they really didn't give up that much, and Terry Rozier is in for 2.5 years. I don't think this is a fantastic fit, but just given what they gave up, I think that this is a good move for.
Yeah, it's
I
just
would
kind
say
of
the fit isn't great, but it's like they got better and they gave up relatively little.
yeah, it's just maybe another trade is coming. Maybe the idea is that they'll trade Hero in a big trade, but it's just kind of like why move a legitimate asset? Not that it was a spectacular asset, but also exactly like you said, like Terry takes up a lot of salary as well. I guess they could reroute him. I don't have a huge problem with this trade, just not exactly a needle mover. And I agree, Rozier is a much better player than Lowry right now. Lowry's really fallen off, but they have just a lot of guys. You know, they have Hawkes, who's good, Richardson, who's fine, Duncan Robinson, who's having an amazing year as well. And no, they haven't really all been healthy at the same time. But when they're all healthy, it's kind of a lot of repetition in terms of skill sets there. I think Rozier is probably, obviously better ball handler than Duncan Robinson, way better shooter than Hawkes. Just didn't seem exactly necessary for me, but Miami's a hard team to criticize. They've done a lot of really good things over the
That's
past
kind
4
of
years.
what it comes down to. Like, uh, Miami, look, I last season like this team stinks. Like, they're gonna be nowhere near the top of the East, and they weren't. So like, yeah, look, this team stinks. They're what the 7th seed, they're 8th seed after the playing tournament, and they got to the NBA Finals. So
Fair.
it's unlike Miami to. By the way, protection on the pick, it conveys automatically as a first round pick of 2028 if it's. But there's live protection 2027. Again, I don't see the Heat. Eric Spoelstra is here for a long time. He just signed a monster deal. I don't see the Heat being a bad team anytime soon. I know that's a long
2028 is
way
a long
away.
time away, though. And
I know it's
Jimmy,
a long way away. I personally don't see it with the Heat. Like, they seem to find a way. I don't want to doubt them too much anymore. But is this trade getting a lot of hate? Not if you guys saying it's getting a lot of hate. It doesn't move the needle, but I think this is fine. This like Fries agree with you saying that this is one where there might be more moves. It's not really in the nature of a Pat Riley team to make significant moves towards the deadline. They're usually an off-season team. Maybe the thinking is in the offseason, Tyler Hero is somebody they move. And I think if they can complement Rozier, Butler, and Adebayo better, and perhaps like Jaquez, who's looked really good this season, maybe that's a great move for them going forward. But for this season, I don't think they gave up too much. And I think that this is a solid position for them. I don't personally look at them right now with championship pedigree, but I didn't last season. And the team is probably a little bit better now than they were last season as well. Man, it's just painful, I think, for the Heat, because if Kyle Lowry was the player they thought they were getting when they made the sign and trade, they probably would have a championship because they were so close. And he just, as much as he was effective in the finals last year and in the conference finals 2 years ago, he just wasn't that player that they thought they were getting. And it seemed like they were that player away from lifting the Larry OB. So that's, I think that's a bit tough from them.
yeah, it just never worked. But he was also like 37.
Yeah, I guess they knew a little bit of the risks involved there. Trying to go through the chat here. So one thing that was brought up from Fries earlier actually mentions the preseason bets that were made on this channel. Kirk, you were part of that preseason special. It's a half season. We have a bit of time today. I figured let's go through the bets that went down in the off season on this channel and kind of just see where they're at from. Do we think they're going to win or we think they're going to lose at this point? So I'm not quite sure which ones you had,
I don't
but I'm going to
remember.
go.
I remember the Chet over for sure.
So one of them, yes, one of them was the Chet over on points at 13.3. That looks good. But I'm just going to list off all the bets here and kind of say yes, no, or maybe on if I think they're going to win. So one of them preseason was Raptors over 36.5. That's a big
like
no.
Me.
Small play. That was me and Pips and you all had that play, and it's not going well. We had a small bet on Anthony Davis DPOY. That's a big no. LeBron under 27.2 points. That looks quite good at this point. I don't see him going on a tear. Knicks over
That
40.
sounds like an insane number in the offseason. Like that bet pretty much has gone as bad as possible and is still going to win.
Uh, the Knicks over 43.5 wins. That looks good. The Bulls over 37.5 wins. That all of a sudden is looking like they're
Bulls
going to be right in the
pretty
mix.
good. Bulls playing
Yeah.
pretty well.
We have the Rockets over 31.5 wins. That's
Nice.
looking phenomenal. The Cavs under 50.5, which looked great. Looked even better when Garland and Mobley went down. Then they decided to win 8 games in a row with those guys out. And now that doesn't look as good. I still think they
Definitely
could fall
not
under
a me bet because I'm on the Cavs over at like 48.5 and
that.
49.
I believe that's a me bet. I believe that was me who had. Yeah, that was definitely me who had that
that's
one.
gonna be close for sure. I love the Cavs, but this run, I don't know how
That will be
real it is.
close.
But Mobley back in a week or so.
I'll pat myself for another me play here. Over 35.5 wins for the Pacers. That's gonna cash soon.
No doubt.
And another play that I had is the Nuggets under 54.5, and that's gonna
Nice.
we're gonna cut close, I think, on that one, unless they kind of taper off near
I
the
think
end of
should
the
be
season.
okay. Well, the thing is, the Nuggets are going to play pretty hard because that 1 seed is really up for grabs, but
yeah,
still probably tracking pretty well.
As far as like most of the plays here, I think based on if you tail all the preseason plays, we're in some decent positioning here overall for that portfolio. So I just wanted to kind of investigate here, but I think good to go through on the show here. All right, Matthew has a question for us here. Another betting related question. I haven't read it yet, so let's read it. This is my first reaction as well. So 2-parter. Should you ever hedge a bet that is clearly plus EV? Say you bet a guy for an award at 30-1, and come spring, it's basically down to him and one other guy, and they're both minus 110. Is it smart to lock in profit, or is it better to let it ride? I imagine it might depend on how many opportunities of this nature you think you'll have going forward. So I'll start here because I've covered this topic in content before. So you can come up with an actual number on how valuable your position is. You can determine your expected value with the current odds based on what you played at. So you can make it as you can determine whether your expected value right now is better or worse than your expected value if you were to hedge, and what the locked in profit would be if you were to hedge. You can't ever fault yourself for taking the plus EV play. So if the plus EV play is letting it ride, like I'll give an example here. So in the World Series, preseason for MLB, because this is an actual concrete example I had. Preseason, I bet on the Diamondbacks to win the World Series at I think it was 20-1 or something. They get to the World Series. I don't know if it was that the sportsbook had a liability on the Diamondbacks. I had a pretty significant plus EV play to cash out, and the cash out option was actually greater than my hedge option, which is very rare. But I decided just to let it ride because I determined, like, I think it was like $20 on it to win. It was at like 20-1 odds. So whatever it was, I decided I could live without $20. I could take a cash out, but I could live without $20. So even though it's plus EV, I felt like I was fine to just let it ride, and it lost. Don't really regret it, but it's all on a personal level for yourself. So is it smart to lock in profit and let it ride? Depends. Can you accept losing that bet completely? Are you in enough money here that you're going to be like losing sleep over it? Is the money available in the hedge option like super like near life changing? These are all the conversations, but I'd have. But what about yourself, Kirk?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of contingencies or things to consider. This is all I do. Like all I do is bet. So I have a really specific focus on maximizing as much value as I can. So typically, I will not hedge a bet unless I think that hedge is also a plus EV bet, and then I'll be happy to hedge unless it was some ridiculous number. Like I did have some quickly 500-1 last year. I did hedge off some of that with Brogdon, but I also had, a few, like I think I had De'Aaron Fox clutch player. That stuff I kind of just will let ride mostly. So generally my thought is unless I'm hedging off with another plus EV bet, I'm probably not going to hedge my position. unless the numbers, so kind of like Jacob said, so grand that you just can't live without it. But if you're just casually betting, a good thing to think about is that if you're going to win a large amount of money and you don't have a huge bankroll, even if you're hedging off with some negative EV, if that bankroll jump helps you bet more in the future on more plus EV stuff, it can be plus EV, even if you're hedging off with a bit of a negative EV bet. But also, yeah, like if you're gonna be really upset if you lose a bet and didn't hedge any, just hedge. It's not unless you're really trying to do everything optimally. Like if you're just betting casually and you've got a great future and you don't want to lose it, hedge. But if you're really trying to optimize, I would say don't hedge negative EV bets unless it's enough growth to your bankroll that'll help you, continue going in the future.
Yeah, I'm usually just like straight up math play when it comes to this. I ignored that for the World Series bet that I mentioned, but like I don't know, 20, like it was a $20 bet. Like I'm not a pro bettor. I'd say I'm like slightly above like Rec Plus, where I can understand all the concepts associated with it. So it's not like I'm playing massive amounts of money. Like I'm in a position I can lose $20 on a World Series bet, and it is what it is. I don't stress over it at all. It would have been nice to have cashed out, but I think in the long run, there's going to be another opportunity where sometimes that play will win. So
For sure.
I think this may have changed my mindset a bit. Experience maybe like, okay, at least if I take the plus EV route, I can't like look back on it and say like I did something wrong, which in this case maybe I did, but like it's all you individually. Mentally, would you be okay losing that bet? Because
Yeah,
for
and
me, if you've got amazing position at 30-1 and it's 50-50, like let that play, or even just hedge a little bit so at least you come away with some money, but don't like hedge it completely.
Yeah, exactly. And there is the flip side of like there's the would you be like devastated if it lost, or like did you put $50 on the Leafs to win the cup and you're a massive Leaf fan and you just want to cheer for the Leafs and you want like
Yeah.
then let it ride, Just it's really a personal thing. If you're trying to maximize EV, like really you take that super seriously, then typically hedging other than certain scenarios is something I would avoid. But if you're a casual bettor who has a nice position and wants to win or would be really upset if you lost it, then hedge.
Here's a good follow up. So the follow up here is, for me, I have to widen the scope of my betting scheme. If I'm having a particularly unlucky year, I'll hedge out, but typically I never hedge. So uh, I don't think like your recent run or anything should really factor. Like if you feel like you're getting plus EV positions, like say you're getting great close on a lot of things, there's just been an unlucky year. I wouldn't let that dictate future betting. Like if your process seems to be going correct, don't let results influence that process, because eventually like things should in theory turn around. However, I can kind of attest to, if I'm on a bad run, I feel like I just need like for comfortability with myself, I need to just lock in some profit. I'll say maybe, because again, like for hedging, it really just comes down to a mental thing at the end of the day. If I need that profit to lock in to feel better, then I could do that. But I wouldn't let like your like a run, like even a season, by like some of the best bettors in the world can have a losing season. Like the best NBA players in the world, sometimes they can have a losing season. It's a small enough sample in the grand scheme that just may not happen. So, like you really need, like if you're broadening your scope on bet, like you really need to broaden it even further. I don't know like what the volume of betting is here, but I wouldn't let like an unlucky season maybe dictate it as much, unless again it's like an emotional thing that needs to be that you need to kind of consider. What do you think about that, Kirk?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like at the end of the day, we're not robots. Like it's hard to just purely maximize things. Like I went through this basketball season has been completely insane for me because it's tracking right now as my most profitable season. But I went through a 3-month stretch where we had by far the worst run I've ever had, closing consistently. Like it was like it felt like I would open Bet365 at like 725 and I would have like a, let's say, an over 240, close 242.5, live total 222.5, 7 minutes into the game. Like there were just points where I was just kind of numb. Like I was like, oh yeah, every bet's going to lose no matter what happens. So you really do want to just be as process oriented as possible. But I would be absolutely lying if I said I wasn't, deeply frustrated.
Yeah.
When I'm on my a horrible run. But horrible runs are going to happen. We're in a variance business.
Yeah, and that's the thing you have to navigate, like you said. Like, it's hard. It's hard to say, like, am I doing the right thing here? But I think also, like, you really expand your scope on what, like, a sample should be. Like, honestly, it's even more than year-to-year basis, like, these sorts of things. So that's always important with betting. But speaking of bets, let's get to some action for today, if we do have anything. Because, well, first of all, any of your picks that you have. But second of all, we have a question from Taylor. I think we spoke about this last week, but you continue to mention Boston as the overwhelming title favorite. At plus 300, do you still think there's any meat on the bone to grab the Celtics that price?
Yeah, I would bet plus 300. I've bet a lot of Celtics, and I literally bet the Celtics. Like, I just think that they are by far the best team in the league. I don't think plus 300 quite reflects that. Or sorry, plus 300? Yeah, I would bet that. I actually recently bet plus 310 like last week. So I just think they're considered the best team in the league by a considerable margin. And I don't really think the markets have quite priced that in. I also bet East to win the finals. I got minus 115. I don't know how much that's still around, but if you can find, there were minus 110s around as well. I think that's a good bet as well. Let's make it official. Celtics to win the championship, and I don't know if BetStamp has like East to win the finals. That's like a pretty obscure bet, but a lot of books do hold that.
Eastern Conference winner Celtics are plus 135.
No, sorry, not Eastern Conference winner. East to win the championship. So like
East
team to win the championship.
I can customize that bet and do East to win at minus 110.
No. Minus 110's too good. We probably need a worse number than that. Because I don't think that's around anymore.
I'll give you a sec to if you can find a number, I'll give you a sec here. But we will lock in NBA Finals winner, Boston Celtics. I know you're not usually a units better, but what would you put unit wise on the Celtics? Best we have is 306 at Pinnacle.
Let's go 1 unit. Oh god.
Full unit.
Full unit.
All right. Full unit. Boston Celtics NBA Finals winner plus 306 at Pinnacle. That's the best price in market that we have here. So we go to a full unit. That could make up for some of the high variance plays we've had from this show so far this season.
Low variance.
It's tough. We'll give Evans a bit of credit here because you come on once a week, you give out 1 to 2 plays once a week. And yeah, things sometimes cannot go your way variance wise. And
no
that's
doubt about that.
Very much what we have on this show. I mean, look at the Forward Progress show, the football show we have the network, one of the best bettors around, Hitman. It went like 3-14 on his weekly best bets throughout the regular season. So some people might think, how can you be a good bettor and go 3-14? Well, that's just 17 bets out of probably thousands that he might be making during the season. So things like that can go awry. Any price on that to win the championship?
DraftKings actually has it minus 110. That is just a ludicrous price. I think it's an arb with Caesars actually.
Okay, so we'll go Eastern Conference team to win the NBA championship as another official play for today. Okay, Eastern Conference team.
I made this bet last year. So I think similar odds, honestly.
And then this Heat.
it closed, like by the time the playoffs came, it was a massive favorite. And then the Heat made the finals.
Yeah, and then it kind of killed it naturally. I will just set it to June 1st. I don't know when the NBA finals are. Okay, so we have a little bit of actionable info for today. That is great to see. I put this in the wrong spot. But anything else maybe from today's perspective that you are going to be looking at?
Yeah, so I'll do one prop here. Not sure he's going to play, but really like it if he does. Mike Conley under 7.5 assists.
Okay.
I think 365 is like 1.71. I would play it down to like 1.66, whatever that was.
We got a minus 140 here. A little bit off market if you have ESPN bet.
Yeah, like minus 145, minus 150, all really good.
So ESPN bet if it's in your region, minus 145. BetMGM, you should have access to, it's minus 145. But if you have access to 365, you can get it for minus 140 here. So we'll put a unit. Mike Conley under 7.5 assists. All right, so turns into 3 official picks from Kirk Evans today.
Let's turn it around. Let's turn it
turn it around here. Not a great start to this one from last week. The Raptors over on wins. They lost their 2 since that point, unfortunately, but still time to bounce back.
A lot of time. Quickly going to be out tomorrow as well.
Mike Conley, you have under 7.5 assists from today, and others from today. You're going to go Boston Celtics as an official play to win the championship. You spoke about this for a while as well, and you have an Eastern Conference team to win the NBA championship. So that's a bit of a season-long sweat. Guarantee you some action heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, you can't lose the bet. You can't lose the bet until the final.
A question here. So, okay, this is actually a good question. So, are there odds for Kyle Lowry buyout market? Certain places, yes. However, when it comes to markets like this, beware of one-way markets. Beware of like next team, because usually they have such a high house edge that it's like almost impossible to bet into these things. Like a certain team could be favored. I think this is what some people would think. You'd see like maybe the Sixers as like the 3rd highest odds for Kyle Lowry to sign for it. You think, well, how are they 3rd? But there's not enough consideration into the specific price associated with it. So I'd say beware a little bit of these sorts of markets where it's only really one way. But I would think the most likely destination, agree, is the 76ers. We didn't mention
I was about to say that would be awesome. I'm cheering really hard for that.
I think it'd be just fun, but I think it would help the Sixers, and I can't stand the Sixers, to be honest.
You can't not stand the Sixers and not stand Boston. Then you hate everyone.
I hate them both. I mean, they're one. Boston is on a tier of its own, but the Sixers are a little bit behind. So the Bucks for me would be the next one, but I can't stomach. I mean, I'm just a hater. I can't stomach a Doc Rivers success story either. So I don't know. Maybe I just need Miami to do it.
Yeah.
Or who else? I can't. Nah, there's nobody. I mean, I don't appreciate Eastern Conference teams. Like, let me just the top team in the East that I could actually like accept. Like, if the Pacers won a chip this year, I could be like, okay, cool.
I think
the
that's
Heat,
really
the Knicks,
likely.
the Cavs, the Sixers, the Bucks, Celtics they'd all be upsetting. But what's good is that my Celtics hate stems so far that as long as it's not them, I won't be upset.
That's good. That's good.
But for the sake of the bet here, viewers may be tailing. I'm not tailing this bet because there's no way I'm rooting for the Celtics.
I was gonna say that then you couldn't possibly be cheering for any team that we have in the final. So I think that's a good idea to not tail.
Maybe the East one will be good to tail because maybe that's my what's the hedge, the emotional hedge. Maybe that's the emotional hedge that I'll have there. Anyways, though, we've gone a while here. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. We got some good NBA discussion. I hope you learned. We went into some educational betting stuff today, so hopefully you got some insight into that. Any questions you have for Thursdays, always feel free. You can let us know while we're in the stream here. But also, I have pinned in chat here a link to the Hammer's own drop station server. It's sort of like Discord, but it's a little bit different here. So get involved with the link that's in the chat right now. And if you have any questions throughout the week, you can also put them in here. We can answer them on the show and have ready and prepared answers as well. So get to the link in the chat. It'll take you just like a few seconds to sign up to this and join our drop station server. But the server here has a different page for every channel that we have with the Hammer. So get involved over there. Thanks so much for watching the show today. We hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and check out the Pick and Roll live stream to go live every weekday morning with myself and Pips, 9:45 a.m. on weekdays. But of course, we have the Thursday show every Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time with myself and Kirk Evans. Again, thanks so much for watching. We should see you again. Hopefully me tomorrow and Kirk next week.